Hello, fellow students. Tony here to give you a brief overview on social media analytics for communicators and PR professionals. Typically, when we are publishing digital content, we'll start by posting a story or blog on a website and then post short teasers on social channels like Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn that point back to the website. So how do we measure success? I call them the big three: impressions, clicks, and click-through rates, and I like to look at them this way in a triangle. All three of these measurements are easily tracked on channels like Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and are also the basis for tracking results on search engine marketing tools like Google AdWords, Google Display, and even Microsoft's search engine called Bing. As a PR professional, if you can understand these three numbers and how they measure the results of your online publishing efforts, I think you'll be well on your way to making informed decisions around your content by understanding where and how your content makes the biggest impact. This is just a quantitative look at numbers only, and it's just one side of the big data we face whenever we publish online. Qualitative data like comments and feedback is an entirely different piece of the digital puzzle. I'm just not going to include that in this overview because it'll be way too long. I like to look at the big three as a triangle because they work together as a formula. Apologies to those of you who hate math. I understand because I'm one of you, but this is really a simple formula and you'll see how important each of the three parts are. I've added some numbers here in this example. The numbers work together and you don't want to take them out of context. I think this is a very practical example because you'll be referring to numbers like these often. In a nutshell, impressions are the total number of times your social post is seen on social media. You can get impressions organically, that is, by just posting on your company's social media page, which will display the post to your company followers, or you can get impressions by paying to have your post appear outside of your circle of followers. If your post appeals to your audience, it will receive clicks. For a simple post with a short teaser and a link to your story, the goal might be to drive traffic to your website, but clicks might not be what you want to measure. Your post might have a video that you want people to watch, or maybe it's just a photo and some accompanying text that you want people to click on and read. So clicks are really the engagements with your post that can be measured. One of the most important metrics in measuring social posts is the click-through rate, also known as engagement rate. It's the percentage of clicks from the impressions. The click-through rate, or CTR, measures the percentage of link clicks. You can use the same basic formula for different situations like video views or clicks on your post, but remember to look at this number carefully. What's the goal of your post, and what do you want to measure? I'll get into more of that in a bit. So to summarize the results of a social post, I like to say, in this example, 100,000 impressions netted 1,000 clicks for a click-through rate of 1%. So now that you have an idea about the big three, there are some other measurements to consider. This can get crazy confusing and a bit geeky, but if you can get a handle on these terms, I really believe it will help you excel as a communicator. Reach is a term that is different than impressions. As an example, let's say the reach for this post was 50,000. That means the post was seen by 50,000 users. The post received 100,000 impressions. So that means 50,000 users saw the post on average 2 times each. That number 2 is referred to as frequency. Calculating the frequency is a pretty simple formula. Divide reach into impressions. Don't worry about all this math. I just want to explain this for you. Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn do this calculation for you automatically when you dive into their analytics. Remember the sales funnel metaphor we talked about in class? It usually takes a lot of reminders to generate awareness before someone actually takes action or clicks. And a word of caution, web analytics can be like financial reporting. There are many different ways to look at the numbers. Be very careful when you receive or gather information. For example, if you calculate the click-through rate from reach instead of impressions, you'll get a much higher result that is not in line with digital marketing best practices. It might be of interest to you or someone on your team, but to me it's an example of how you can be led astray by overanalyzing. Big data has a lot of nice-to-know numbers, and you can go down rabbit holes all the time. Now let's say you want to try spending a little money to promote your content. You've got good results from sharing your content with your followers, but you want to reach outside of your circle and target users who do not follow your page. Maybe you're hoping to spread the word about your brand or initiative into a new location and get more followers for your page. Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter all have different audience tools to help you show your post to users based on things like their age group, location, or interests. So you define an audience and put a little money behind your post. Typically, the way you pay for your promotion is cost per click. I know, more math. Cost per click is calculated by dividing the number of clicks the post gets into the amount of money you spend on the ad. Now, in my humble opinion, if you can understand the terms here, impressions, clicks, and click-through rate, reach and frequency, and cost per click, you're well on your way to being an informed digital communicator. Here are some practical examples from a former employer. You've seen a couple of these already, but here are the results where you will see that every post has a different goal. The post with the photo of the company mascots is a fun Christmas message. It doesn't have a link in it, so you would change the Big 3 formula to measure the number of clicks or engagement on the post. This post is a message about the company call center, which was overwhelmed on the last day of a promotion. Again, it has no link, so you'd measure engagements. This post gets a bit complicated. It has a description, a link to the website, and a video testimonial about a company product. There's a lot going on, so it generates a lot of data. There's a click-through rate to measure the number of link clicks, a view rate to measure the number of video views, and an engagement rate to measure the total number of times the post was clicked on. Finally, there's this post on the right, which had a small budget behind it to reach out beyond the company's followers. It has separate data for non-paid or organic results and for paid results. These results tell you a lot. First, engagement rate alone is not a good measurement. Consider the impressions and remember back to the sales funnel and how important it is to create awareness. Also consider that your engagement rate will likely always be higher on the company pages than it will be when you pay to promote your content outside of your circle of followers. That's because when you post on your company page, you're appealing to the people who already like you. It's like preaching to the choir, whereas going outside of your circle is, if I can build on the church choir metaphor a little bit more, it's like trying to convert people. It's way more of a challenge. So what do all these numbers mean? In my experience, you will always be asked for benchmarks, and benchmarks that truly reflect your business are always hard to come by. I recommend looking at a site like WordStream's website, shown here, to see some examples. But be aware that these don't really explain the context around the number of impressions or clicks, and they don't always match up to your industry. They might be a bit helpful, but they aren't the only answer. You should also track your results as you go so you can benchmark against yourself over time. Or if you're lucky enough to be in an industry that has an association, perhaps you can find benchmarks from other similar companies. This is an example of Google AdWords dashboard. It's from a paid digital marketing campaign I ran for a Christmas CD I recorded. Shameless self-promotion. It's called Turn Up the Christmas Volume 11, and it's on iTunes. But I wanted to show you this so you can see the practicality of knowing the terms I've mentioned. It's pretty overwhelming at first, but you can see highlighted in yellow how Google tracks the big 3. Impressions, clicks, and click-through rate, and also tracks the key paid digital stats of cost and average cost per click. There are a lot more sources of data for social posts, which can also feed into data for your website. And if your website has Google Analytics or other analytics software, you can slice and dice data into a number of different ways for a myriad of reports. And it can get crazy. And you should try and get help from a digital marketing expert if you have access to one. But you should always ask yourself this question when you are gathering data or looking at results. So what? If you can justify the report based on the goals of your content, chances are you're on the right track.